Okay.
Crowd today.
Yeah. And I think we're okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Western Regional Water Commission for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025 at 8:30. We're in the Sparks Council Chambers. And I also, before I start, I want to do a sound check for the Zoom. And so I don't know if there's anyone on the Zoom to check with us. Okay. Could we get confirmation from someone?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. And then also, do you have the recording rolling? This has recently happened to a few boards where they forgot to start the recording right on time, so just thought I'd check. You're good? All right, well, we'll move ahead. And the first thing I'd like to request is roll call, please.
Tommy Durr.
Here.
Paul Anderson.
Here.
Clara Andriola. Mary Ruth Garcia.
Here.
Alexa. Miguel Martinez.
Here.
Susan Sever.
Here.
Here. Diane Vanderwell.
Here.
All right, excellent. And then we'll rise for the pledge, and I would like to ask Mr. Folletta to lead us, please.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
OMG. All right, next we'll turn to item 3, public comment. Madam Clerk, is there anyone registered for public comment? All right, and how about on Zoom? Is there anyone who'd like to raise their hand for public comment? Please do so at this time. And we have none, so we'll close that item out and move on to approval of the agenda. And I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Taylor and a second from Mr. Anderson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And then we're moving on to item 5, approval of the minutes from the November 6, 2024 concurrent meeting of the Western Regional Water Commission and the Northern Nevada Water Planning.
Years, we're mandated to review and update our comprehensive regional water management plan. And 2026 is our year to review and update that plan. One of the requirements in that plan, we changed slides here, is under section 42.7, we are required to do a cost and finance analysis of all facilities, 5-year capital improvement plans, and their impact on persons living within the planning area. And for the last 2 updates, we have hired a professional consulting firm, financial consulting firm, to do this financial analysis for us. And Catherine Hansford with Hansford Economic Consulting, I always say HEC, but I want to make sure I'm sounding out, not using acronyms, is on the line, and she is going to go through what that budget's task, what the tasks are going to look like, and then we'll go through the budget and the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission recommendation. So, Catherine, are you?
Yep.
On the
I'm
line?
here.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to hand this over to you, and then Madam Chair will take over afterwards to make the recommendation.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Catherine Hansford. I'm the principal of Hansford Economic Consulting. As
Can we hold just a moment? Could you turn up the volume just a little? Oh, that's not here. That's somewhere else.
To the tech room.
Sorry.
Hopefully we don't need to give her a lot of exercise.
Yeah, could you turn down the volume, please? And for the next, yeah. Anyway, it was a little hard to hear her, so. Okay, sorry to send you on a race there. I didn't realize. All right, please continue.
Okay, well, thank you. As Ms. Rigdon had mentioned, I did assist with the last 2 updates in providing this chapter and a supplemental piece of work that goes with this chapter. So I'll just explain fairly briefly the proposed scope of work of services that you have before you. So the first task is to coordinate with Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. In the past, I've had to work with each of the agencies individually very much on a one-by-one basis, obtaining their data on their capital improvement plans for the next 5 years and their longer-term plans for large-scale improvements as well. Last year, the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency created their first public infrastructure plan. And as a part of that PIP effort, they are now requesting this information from each of the agencies. So Task 1 in the past used to be a fairly heavy lift. Task 1, I think this time around, will be a much lighter lift. I think there will still be a little bit of coordination needed with individual agencies, just making sure we've got everything we need. But mostly it's going to be coordinating with Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency staff and the data that they have gathered to date. The second task, though, is to take a much deeper dive into that data, looking at not only the costs of the facilities, but how they're going to be paid for, who's responsible for elements of the cost. Is it existing users or is it new development, for example? So it takes a much deeper dive and it looks at the sources of the funding as well. It also takes a look out, as I mentioned before, into the longer term horizon, some of the larger capital elements, things like major upgrades to wastewater treatment plants. Those can be beyond the 5-year time frame, or perhaps they're started in that 5-year time frame, but we want to know what's the total cost estimate for that effort. So we want to make sure we're looking a little bit beyond that 5-year horizon as well. And then calculating what is the impact of those costs on the users. That's the requirement in NRS. So that's task 2. Task 3 is preparing the financial chapter. And this is where in the past, the effort has been a little bit different from what I think it will be this time around. In the past, it's been very much a traditional chapter that's written and incorporated into the plan. But I think this year there will be a more effort into streamlining some of the information and helping to put this in a more user-friendly format on the website. So there's going to be a little bit more work, a little bit more effort this time around, working with staff and with the outreach consultants on how to present the information this time. So that's going to need a little bit more effort this time, I think. Task 4 includes meetings and presentations. Don't anticipate too many of those, but just want to make sure that we have that included in the budget. And then finally, there is a task 5. Now, this is an optional task. It was completed the last 2 times. It's not work that goes directly into the plan itself, but it's been supplemental work that's really helped to inform and that some of the agencies have found very useful and helpful. And it's a feasibility analysis, or it's a fee burden analysis, actually. But ultimately, the findings of it is how feasible is it for new development to occur given the levels of the connection fees for water and wastewater, and that, of course, being stacked on top of all the other fees that they have to pay to develop. So that's been a very informative piece of work, and I did include that again this time around. You have the budget. The schedule, of course, is to fit in with the overall plan update and making sure that work is completed by the end of summer this year.
All right.
Before you leave us, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background? I know you said you've done this twice before.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious about your background.
Yes, thank you for asking. Yes, so I'm an economic consultant. Actually, I have a master's degree from UNR. Mm-hmm. It's in agricultural economics, but then have worked in both the private sector and I worked at Truckee Meadows Water Authority for 4 years as a resource planner there. And I do a lot of cost of service studies, rate and fee studies, both in Nevada, California, and also in Oregon. And I've been in business for a little over 20 years now. So, and then I've had a long-term relationship too with the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency.
Great. Okay, that's awesome. And then fellow alumni, that's always great to hear. And then what part of the country do you live in?
Oh, I'm in Truckee.
Truckee. Okay, thank you. All right, let me ask Ms. Rigdon, did you have more to say, or shall I open it for questions?
I was just going to say the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission made a recommendation at their February meeting for us, for the WRWC, to approve the budget and scope of work. And they did have a lot of comments on how informative and professional HEC's work has been in the past.
Oh, fantastic. All right, let me open it to the board for any questions or comments about either this part of the plan or the consultant we're considering hiring. Anyone? Yeah, please, Mr. Anderson.
Could you just clarify the one that I wasn't so clear on? So the request amount is $34,990. Does that include task 5, which is listed as optional?
It does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. And I should also be clear that that is a maximum not to exceed amount. So I could come in under that budget amount. They're always estimates when we prepare these scopes of services. And as I mentioned earlier, I see the effort shifting between the tasks a little bit this time around, which is why I've allowed for that.
Great. Thanks for the answer there. And yeah, it was one that I was thinking if we even need to tack on more, I thought it'd be worthwhile because see that as an important topic moving forward. So, thank you.
Yes, and Member Anderson, that's a good question. In the past, I was here for the 2021 update at the tail end of it, and Catherine's budget came in under budget by thousands of dollars. And so she's very good at billing for the work that she does and not the entire contract if not needed.
Anyone else? I just have a follow-up question. She mentioned, I think, and this is where I need clarity, a little bit more about how the material is presented, or I wasn't sure if she also meant social media or website. I wasn't really clear on that part.
That's a really good question. And Catherine, I'll go ahead and answer that because we've been having some discussions and we'll go through a little bit of this in the next agenda item as well. We've been working heavily on updating our website and creating educational components to the website. And one of the things we want to do in that effort is to create tools. And I have Director Smith at TMRPA working with us to update the website in a similar fashion that they have, where you have a data portal or you have an education webpage that you can go to and you can learn more about our projects. And we want to do the same thing with the Regional Water Management Plan, make it a little more user-friendly, bring it out of the 1990s and make it more of a digital interactive plan on our website. And so Catherine has committed to working with us on getting that data in a format that works with what our vision is for that.
Okay. I remember, and for those that are newer on the board, we gave this direction a number of months ago to really beef up the Western Regional Water Commission website and make it more interactive and easier to access. Really, the information is kind of buried, and I appreciate that. So thank you. All right, calling for any final comments or questions on this. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve this consultant contract.
I move to approve the contract agreement not to exceed $34,990 from the Regional Water Management Fund for Hansford Economic Consultants to update the cost and finance chapter of the Regional Water Management Plan.
All right, and a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, Ms. Sievert. All right, so I have a motion from Mr. Anderson, second from Ms. Sievert. Any comments on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And we'll close out 6 and move on to 7, which is possible action, discussion, possible action, direction to staff, and approval of a scope of work and funding not to exceed $40,000 from the Regional Water Management Fund for the public relations firm Good Standing to provide professional services to WRWC. And will that be Ms. Elquist LaRue? Oh, here she is.
And I'll go ahead and start out.
Or
Madam
LaRue,
Chair.
sorry.
Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and start out
Yeah.
and introduce Ms. Elquist-Lore. Commissioners, Kim Rigdon for the record. I'm very, very excited to present this to the board. As we discussed in the last agenda item, we've been working very hard to create and update our website to a user-friendly format. And Madam Chair, as you had mentioned, we really want a showpiece for members of the commission to be able to send your constituents to our website when they have questions about who are we, what do we do, what are our projects, how much are we spending, and what that means to them as a community in the planning area. So I have Cami here, Mrs. Elquist-Laura is a communications planner with good standing. They also already are engaged with work with some of our regional partners. They've done Smart About Water Day. They work with the One Water Nevada planning effort. So they're perfectly positioned to help us with this effort, and they understand our partnering agencies and the work that we're doing. So with that, I'd like to give Ms. Elquist-Laura an opportunity to talk a little bit about her company and what the proposed scope of work is, and then I'll finish up at the end.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much.
Good morning, Cami Elquist-Laura, for the record, with good standing. And as you can see on the slide, in addition to our current engagement with Truckee Meadows Water Authority, our agency has also served many of WRWC's member agencies over the years. And with Marlene Olson at the helm, I must call out Marlene because she's been doing this for a very long time. She's been communicating water resources since, the very first drought management plan, and taking actually county and Tumwa through the STEMGID merger. Our outreach always starts with understanding what customers and constituents need to know. And because water management, topics can be really esoteric and very complex, and as we all know, quite charged. So we always focus on what the need of the customer or the constituent is, and then we move from there. So we're very pragmatic and practical about our approach instead of diving into the deep end on the topic. So we wade in, and then we take the customer and the constituents with us as we go down. And I think that that's a key part of what we want to do with the work here with WRWC is create entry points for people to understand what is a really complex topic. So that's sort of our approach in general. So that's, basically it. We've been doing public relations in the area since really the mid-'80s. Not just water. Initially, it was a lot of events, event management. So if you've ever been to the balloon race, we put our stamp on that in the early years.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Any final words, Ms. Rigdon?
Well, did you want to go through this?
I can very quickly if you would like.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
We can kind of tag.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, we would take, that same kind of pragmatic approach with this project. And I think that the regional water management plan creates a really good opportunity to apply this type of work. What we'd like to do is develop key visuals to help communicate the aspects of the plan. And then also within that visual, make it interactive, an infographic kind of style, so people get a big picture relatively quickly. And then if they want to dive into the projects that offer proof and support of what WRWC is doing in support of the plan to help meet those priorities, that infographic would do that, lead into the projects. And then finally, we have talked about getting a How Water Works video series to complement the release of the plan, offering 4 to 5 short videos to provide that bigger picture about regional water management in the area. And then, at the end of the scope is that all of these things would help evolve the webpage that Kim is working on with the regional planning authority agency, thank you, to update that website and ultimately not only, evolve the website, but also offer assets that member agencies could use in their communication strategies as it pertains to regional water management. So that's sort of the overall goal. It's not only to help lift up the website content, highlight the objectives of the water resource plan, but also offer something for member agencies to point people to understand this bigger picture.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Madam Chair, if I may. The pilot How Water Works series was really born from the City of Reno Director Flansburgh. This was really his idea, and he brought it forward because we were trying to figure out how do we help our community better understand all these regional planning topics, how they work together, and then how the agencies are implementing their programs in support of this comprehensive plan. And in this was, well, maybe the public needs to know just how water works in the community. And the videos that we're envisioning would be interviews with or presentations by the directors of our utility services programs, maybe involve some of the members of the commission that would be interested in being involved in that, so that we can highlight the good work that the Western Regional Water Commission does and the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. So this is going to be a pilot project. We're planning on doing a few up front, seeing how they are received and how they turn out. And then if it's something that we want to continue moving forward with, we can continue to fund Cammie's good standing to help us to continue making more.
Well, I'll just jump in. I love this idea of the How Water Works videos. Anything we can do to help people understand that the water just doesn't magically appear at the tap. What goes into it, acquiring the water rights, treating the water, delivering the water, the challenges with that, whether it's water pressure, water quality. I think all the parts. And even if you go to the other sections of the water plan, which is, includes flooding, includes water quality, stormwater, all the things, wastewater. I personally think it'd be fantastic effort for our citizenry. And I'd love to even see snippets. Like, let's say a video is a couple minutes long, maybe a 30-second snippet on I don't know if they still do these publications for free, PSAs, but I'd love to have a 30-second snippet and say, you want to know more? Check out these videos, or something. But anyway, let me open it. I was just an immediate reaction. I really liked it, but let me open it up for any commentary. Yeah, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm new on this board, so this is a great effort. My question is, this usually when we see website work or anything like this, there's no room or budget for anything afterwards, so it becomes stale. So what about the maintenance side of keeping this up and the ongoing? Do we have somebody in-house that takes care of that? I would hate to invest this effort and then have it not be carried out in the months, and because we're going to be evolving and doing new things.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And yes, we have a interlocal agreement with the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. They actually do the hosting of our website and the website development. They help us with posting our meetings. And so we have continual support from the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency on keeping this website, as well as we have a source water protection website. It's called cleanwater.org, and I'll get you the web. I said that wrong, and I will get it for you because I always forget the URLs. We have so many. But we have a regional source water protection website that has the same regional collaborative function as this board has. And they develop that website. They keep it up to date. We have regular updates to that website as well. So we're confident that they'll be able to continue that service to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, yeah. Anyone else? Comments? I mean, this is a big opportunity to get our message out. So, Ms. Sievert.
So I love this idea of the videos, especially since I get asked a lot about the expense of water, right? I mean, because I don't think anyone realizes the rules and the regulations that not only do we follow today, but we may have to follow tomorrow. Because every time you turn around, something changes. And if we could simplify that and let people know, we committed, centuries ago to have clean water always. And so I think that would be a great opportunity.
Yes, good comment. And that's where the regional water management plan and educating people on what that is and how long it's been in place really comes into play.
Anyone else? Comments? No? Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, just want to make sure. So what we would have is this would be a standalone site through Western Regional Water, but we would connect in with the partnership agencies, whether it's TUMWA, One Water Nevada, whatever. Would it be like links to them, or how do you foresee that collaboration with the other agencies?
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's something that we're visioning. It would definitely be a part of the Western Regional Water Commission website. And what we don't want to do is duplicate efforts. So we don't want to copy what the other agencies are doing. And we want them to be able to keep ownership of some of the programs. For example, the Stormwater Committee, that's its own independent program. So we would have like an overview of what that program is, how we fund that program and support it, how it fits into the regional planning vision that we have for the community, and then link into their program and their website.
And I like that we're just not copying whatever else is being done, but working with them. So great job. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, at this time then, I'm looking for a motion to approve the proposed contract.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Ms. Garcia and a second by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion? And that's for $40,000 for the contract with good standing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to you both. Fantastic. We'll close out 7 and move on to 8. And 8 is action, well, it's odd that it starts with action, but discussion, possible direction, possible action to staff to approve the draft WRWC tentative budget for fiscal year 25-26, which is called FY26, and to schedule a public hearing for adoption of the budget. Ms. Rigdon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the commission, and we can change those if it becomes a little complicated. That was a recommendation by our legal counsel a couple of years ago, but we can work on the wording of those if it makes it a little easier moving
That would
forward.
be helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
I like to discuss stuff before we take action. So that's
Yes. So it is budget season again, and we are about a month early for our board because we're not going to hold a March meeting due to the 2025 Water Reuse Symposium that staff and some members of the commission are attending. So I'm bringing this a little bit early. And the Department of Taxation schedule is they require us to submit the tentative budget on April 15th. The public hearing has to be held between May 19th and May 30th, and that's for the final budget approval. And then the final budget needs to be submitted to the Department of Taxation by June 1st. If you look at your agenda packet, we're going to focus on, there's 2 parts to that. The part 1 is the budget summary that I'll go through. Part 2 are the state documents that we actually submit to the state. We don't submit part 1 to the state, pages 1 through 3. That we develop in-house and present to the board so that you have a good breakdown of the expenses and revenues coming in. So on page 1 of that, you'll see the total revenues are $1.98 million. Our total expenses projected are $3.4 million, which gives us a net in cash reserves of a negative $1.45. And I'll go through the budget analysis and how we can accomplish a negative cash reserve at the end of the fiscal year. And so on that same page, you'll see our tentative budget analysis. And we take the cash balance from our previous fiscal year audit, and that is as of July 1st, 2024. And we had a cash balance at the end of last fiscal year of $2.5 million. Then we look at the estimated cash flow in revenue from this year. What do we believe our revenues are going to be at the end of this fiscal year? And we estimated $1.98 million. The estimated expenditures through the end of this year, which the end of this fiscal year is June 30th, to be $2.6 million. And that leaves us with a cash balance starting out fiscal year 26 of $1.88 million. So when you see our cash balance of $1.88 million and you take that negative cash reserves that we said that would occur because we over budget a little bit because we know we have the money in the bank, that leaves us with $433,328, which is approximately 6 months of our operating budget. So we start the year off with that 6 months in reserve. So on page 2, you'll see the professional services budget detail. For some of you that were on the board in the previous year and were at the concurrent meeting, you saw this at our concurrent meeting with the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. The Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission holds a priority setting workshop and goes through an exercise of looking at what projects and priorities will fund through that fiscal year that support the implementation of the Comprehensive Regional Water Management Plan. So these are the topic areas that we have projects coming out of. And so for water supply and water conservation, we've budgeted $137,000 worth of priorities and projects. Wastewater and reuse is $600,000. Stormwater is $403,000. Flood control and planning is 375. And implementation of the regional water management plan, this is our agreement with Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, and the money that we just allocated to hire HEC consultants will come out of this pot. So that $210,000 is really for us to continue to implement and develop the regional water management plan. And then we have $900,000 that we keep in our pending projects and contingency fund. And what this pot of funding is for, we have projects that are in phases or have the scopes of work aren't quite developed yet. We also have projects that may come up that are a priority for that didn't get discussed because they weren't brought up as an issue at the time of the priority setting. So what this does is it gives us a little bit of a buffer to fund those projects as the scopes of work are developed and priorities arise through that fiscal year. And so our total professional services budget is $2.6 million. And then the last page is our routine operating budget, and this is for staff services, and it supports 3 full-time Western Regional Water Commission staff and our legal counsel. And non-staff services are for things like maintaining our insurance and bonding, our technical support, website updates as needed. So we have a lot under the operating budget that it also includes support for the board to attend some of the site tours that we're doing, the travel expenses that might come up for board members in WRWC to attend conferences and water events. So that routine operating total is $798,718. And with that, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'll just answer some questions
Yeah.
on any of the budget details.
I think it would be useful for all the members to know where the money comes from.
Yes, that's a great point. My apologies. So our revenue come from a 1.5% surcharge fee on all public water systems in the service in the planning area. So Sun Valley G contributes, Tumwa contributes, and we have about 6 public water systems that contribute to them.
So what's important here is that every person who gets water from one of those 6, 1.5% of their bill, I mean, it's not a fixed amount, right? It floats based on what their bill is collected and then sent over to here to do the water planning work, right? Okay, just in case, you haven't studied your water bill that closely or didn't really know where does this money magically come from, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And then just since we do have a number of newer members, can you just go over how, I know you just mentioned about the joint meeting, but how these projects are prioritized? There's some things that are not on the list. So.
Sure. So the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission members that represent the different agencies that are represented on this board bring forward projects that are important to their individual agencies and that have a regional significance. And so these projects are either have been outlined as action items or needs in the regional water management plan to implement that plan, or they've been brought forward because it's a priority that was brought up. For example, we've been discussing, and I'll go through a little bit more detail, the regionalization of wastewater effort that was brought forward by the board.
Yeah.
So when this board brings forward an initiative, then we'll tap into that funding that we have under the contingency funding to then initiate the needs of this board and the requests of this board. So that would be an example of an upcoming project that hasn't been included on the list quite yet. I think I did include it with a budget to be determined. And so once we receive that scope of work, we'll include that into the budget, and that will come out of that contingency. The rest of the projects, some are ongoing annual projects that have been funded for years, things like the precipitation monitoring. I think that's been going on for over 20 years, since before the WRWC was established through the Washoe County Division of Water Resources. And that program decided it was important to monitor precipitation so that we could look at weather patterns and how our water supply is replenished through, over a long period of time. So we continue to fund projects like that.
On that one, is that the full budget or is it shared by others? Like, for example, I know the flood project, for example, has had, I don't know currently what they have, they've had an employee and or a contractor, well, they're a contractor, to staff the rain gauges or the stream flow gauges. That's a separate effort?
The separate effort.
Okay,
yes.
so you're just doing precip, but does this money go to the USGS or
Desert Research Institute.
DRI?
So we fund the Desert Research Institute through an interlocal agreement, and they do share their data with like the NOAA. They do have a data sharing agreement within their own organization to share this nationally, so that the data does go to a website and we have access. They have access to ours and we have access to.
Well, for example, like in flooding, the NOAA collects data and they predict, where in western US it's going to flood. And I look at that website frequently, but you're saying part of the information probably comes from DRI?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I'm sure they're sharing data as well. I don't know for sure. I don't want to say yes, they are or aren't. I
Okay.
have to look into it, but I'm absolutely certain that all the partners are sharing the data.
well, I'm under future agenda items, I'm going to ask if you could summarize for us the various agencies that are working on water collection data, because I know the USGS is, I know Flood is, and we are, and I'd love to see the full basket. I don't know if DRI has any other funds that are going towards this, but it would just be good to have a better understanding of which agencies are involved and which part of the collection and analysis of the data they're doing, just for all of our education.
Yeah.
Let me open it up to questions from everyone. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, new, looking at this for the first time. I have a larger question. In the total revenue, we're about 2 million. Our total expenses are about 3.4 million. And then we're able to make that work because of the cash balance carried forward of about what looks like, 1 point whatever million dollars. Going forward in 27, that $433,000, can we expect that to be the cash balance that we're going to be forwarding to make up the difference? And then I imagine our professional services and projects will go down significantly. Was this a high year or high planning year? Or if you could just help me understand that a little bit.
That's a
Appreciate
great question. And we get that question every year. I should probably preempt it by just explaining it, but I like the question. So, yes. So what typically happens is we have that $900,000 in contingency funds, plus our projects could be 1 year or multiple year contracts. So even though we estimate spending that amount so that we have that budget allocated, it doesn't always happen every year. And this is very typical from year to year, where we do have a large cash balance at the end of the year that we then carry forward, and then we reobligate those funds to make sure we have them. And if there were an instance where we had a high spending year where we just depleted the fund due to those professional services, then we would have to pull it in and rein it in for the next year and reconsider that budget. But we have not had that happen in the
Thank
years
you.
that I've been here previous.
That's helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like that we have the contingency funds listed there. I was curious if any of the folks on the professional services budget have reached out with concerns about what's happening at the federal level with federal funding. I know DRI is very heavily funded by federal monies. Are any of these programs at risk or in jeopardy of being able to deliver on what any of the projects listed?
That's a great question. We have not had anybody reach out to us, and we have not been too concerned about our budget, particularly because we're a fee-based budget. So as long as people are using water, then we'll have the fees coming in and we'll watch it and see what happens. But we have not had anybody reach out with any concerns as far as our projects.
Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Martinez.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Quick question. There's a couple of TBDs on here. I'm assuming each one has a specific answer, but just wondering if we will have more concrete numbers by the time the final budgets come around.
We will for some, and for some we may not. So what happens is when they do their priority setting, the Water Planning Commission members will come with a project that may need to be done, but we need to go through the process of really outlining what that scope of work will look like, go out for solicitation if we need consulting services for that assistance. So some of them will be ironed out very quickly. Like I said, the wastewater regionalization study that we were directed to move forward with, we are moving forward with that. We don't have the scope of work yet. We're waiting on that. And so once we get that scope of work, that will come to the board. Any new contracts that have TBD next to them, we will make sure come to the board. We'll present that project to this board, and you'll have a recommendation from the Water Planning Commission on approval of that project. Does that
Great.
answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? No? Nothing? Okay. let me just ask, on the 900,000, you said that the regionalization of sewer would come out of that. Do you know approximately what we're looking at?
You know, have been working with the firm that submitted a proposal on that. And we just got a proposal for a phase one of that project to be, I think it was $167,000.
Okay.
So we have plenty to cover that phase one.
Okay.
And I'll talk more about that. I was going to give you an update in my program manager's report on where we're at. But
Okay.
yes, we have plenty of budget to get them started this year and to fund additional phases next year.
Mhm. Okay. All righty. So given no other questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion on number 9 to, on number 8 to approve the tentative budget.
Motion to approve the tentative budget.
Second?
All right, so a motion for Ms. Taylor, second for Mr. Anderson. Did I
This
say it
one-
wrong?
No, you didn't say it
Oh.
wrong, but this one is a little bit technical because of the statute. So if we could have the motion be specifically as it's
Okay.
stated.
In the staff report.
Yeah, in the staff report.
Well, before we go on, I just realized we also want to set the public hearing.
Yes.
So do you have some recommended dates?
We do,
Thursday,
in
May
the staff report, and I apologize, Madam Chair, I should have stated that. We have May 22nd set aside. We coordinate that public hearing with the Flood Management Authority in Tumwa.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we have that.
And we don't
date.
have to say the time today, just,
We don't have to, but
Yeah.
it will be May 22nd.
yeah, but I meant the time. I don't know which order we're all going.
We're thinking 9 a.m. but
Okay.
if we don't have any other agenda items, we
Okay.
might be able to push it to 9:30 so that
Okay.
we don't have you here for a full hour.
All right, so
unnecessarily.
may the motion maker, could you read that
Sure.
motion?
Move to approve the draft WRWC tentative budget for FY26, direct staff to submit and file the tentative budget as required by statute, and provide notice as required by law for the public hearing on the tentative budget to be held Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at 9 a.m.
Okay, and second agrees?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Anderson? Okay, thank you. Well, we've got a motion and a second. Any comments on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And now we are up to item, I believe it is 9, which is discussion and possible direction and action to staff to form the WRWC Legislative Subcommittee for the 2025 session.
Thank you, Chair. Lucas Valletta, Council, to the Commission. As you all know, the legislative session is underway. Historically, this body has appointed a legislative subcommittee to consider potential legislation that may be affecting this body and to provide guidance to staff in terms of any positions that the organization may want to take or express or any lobbying efforts it may undertake. TUMWA also appoints a similar legislative subcommittee, and historically we have appointed the same group of people because we hold joint subcommittee meetings with TUMWA through the course of the session. And so as it stands right now, our subcommittee is members Doer, Anderson, Hill. Those are the same members appointed by TUMWA for this session. TUMWA's alternates, the first alternate is Clara Andriola and the second alternate is Kathleen Taylor. We do not have any alternates on the books presently. If you'd like to do that, I'd recommend appointing one or both.
Okay. I would be interested in continuing to serve. Mr. Anderson?
I too would be interested in continuing to serve. And the one thing I would want to say for those that are new members, we actually do these concurrently. So we do TUMWA and Western Regional Water at the same time. So it makes it convenient to have the same folks there.
And I spoke to Ms. Hill, and she was interested in continuing to serve. So that we have representatives from each of the jurisdictions. And these are at TUMWA and here, various members of the chair, vice chair, and our alternates. So anyway, well, we've let that be known. Is there any interest in making a motion? Well, I'll make a motion then. I will recommend that myself, Naomi Dewar, Paul Anderson, and Alexis Hill serve as the Western Regional Water Commission Legislative Subcommittee for 2025.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hebert. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All All right, motion carries unanimously. And then we're looking for the program manager updates. Thank you, Mr. Filetta.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim Rigdon for the record. So the first update that I wanted to give you was on the wastewater regionalization effort. So just as for new board members, in May of last year, the Western Regional Water Commission made a request to staff to ask the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission to look at the possibilities associated with either closer collaboration or regionalization of our wastewater utilities. Staff took that to the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. We held 2 workshops to discuss what this might look like moving forward and came up with a plan to go out to solicitation for a request for, we were going to do a request for qualifications, and we ended up doing a request for proposal. There was some logistics in that with the county purchasing process, and so we switched it to a request for proposal. We ended up getting 1 proposal back. There was a staff working group that was assigned through the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission with a member from each agency and TUMWA to perform the interviews, help with the solicitation project or solicitation process, and evaluate the proposals that came in. We held an interview a few weeks ago, and the results of that interview were to give the company, who is Raftillis Financial Consultants, along with Zenjero, who is a law firm out of California that works with them, direction to resubmit an amendment to the proposal that gives us a little more detailed scope of work and budget and a phased timeline for activities in that effort. We felt like there is going to be a bit of a learning curve with the consulting firm to really work with the agencies and understand what are their administrative processes, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that are going to come up based on what they learn, really understand the data and information that's available to do the analysis. And we felt like that would be a good first phase of the project, is getting to know all the different agencies and the representatives. And that includes speaking with some of the WRWC members in those representative agencies to pull them into the process and find out what's important to each one of our members in this so that they can make the best recommendations moving forward. And then phase 2 of that project would be more in alignment with, now that we understand the administrative process and what this means, we can do the full analysis and come to the board and say, okay, how is this going to impact things like our stormwater programs, and what kind of recommendations do we need to come out of the process based on those impacts? So the phase 1 will be, really taking a look at what we need, what our goals are, what our administration looks like, and then move into the second phase of the project where they're able to do the analysis and make some recommendations to us.
So I'm sure you have more to your report. Is that right?
Just a couple other.
Oh, well, I was going to
highlights,
ask
but yeah.
if I could make some comments on this first report. So just a question. You said you started out to do a RFQ, which makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But then you switched to RFP. I mean, can you explain that a little more?
It was more of the process that we're administered through Washoe County,
Right.
and Washoe County's purchasing department felt that with what we were doing and the amounts that it could amount, it was likely going to be over $100,000, and for projects that are over $100,000, they really like those to look like an RFP,
Okay.
not an RFQ. So we just went ahead and did it in accordance with their
Okay.
processes.
And then a follow-up, for this approximately 167, it sounds like you're leaning towards, are there deliverables? Because it sounds like we're doing a lot of education of our consultants, and we all know what we're doing, and it seems like that and you have the water plan, which explains the various roles of the agencies. But I just wondered, what are these deliverables that you're going to expect this first round?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the deliverables will be a summary, because we have the water plan, but it's not a detailed look
Okay.
at what each agency is really doing administratively
Okay.
when it comes to, the water plan is a high-level overview. So this would be a much more detailed report that really speaks to what are the administrative procedures, what is each agency, what are they doing as far as capital improvement planning, how are they meeting or not meeting, or worried about meeting regulatory requirements for water rights or environmental concerns, permit requirements. And so we'll really do a detailed analysis of that. And then at the end of that, come forward with a recommendation that says, you know what, you guys, this really makes sense. You're all on board with this. Administratively, we have to look at these things. These are the things that are the topics that are going to come out of this report are going to be part of the analysis. And so that phase 2 will really be based on the report and recommendations of the phase 1.
So the deliverable will be a report that explains all this in detail?
That's what my understanding is. And we're still working on refining that scope of work with the working group on the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. So I'll have a little bit more detail once that scope of work is refined, and I'll be able to bring that to the board as a presentation.
Any more questions on this part of the report? Yeah, Mr. Anderson.
So Kim, if I understand correctly, there was only one reply to
Yes.
the RFP. And can I ask quite frankly, are we feeling confident with this organization and their background and what they've done that they would do a sufficient job because to me, this seems like pretty broad and wide scope of work that they're going to be doing.
My general feeling from the Water Planning Commission was Ralph Ellis has done a lot of work with the city of Reno, and they've done the rate studies for all the different agencies along with Far West Engineering, who has done those in the past. So they do have experience working with all of our agencies, and the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission members felt confident that they would be able to do a good job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, you want to continue on with your report?
Oh, I just wanted a couple other updates. No meeting on March 16th. There's a couple there. I think there's 3 members. I'm very excited coming to the 2025 Water Reuse Symposium in Tampa, Florida, and staff will be there. So we won't be having that meeting. And also, we are now at capacity for our Orange County Water District and Albert Robles Learning Center tours that we're providing. We normally do 2. We were only able to do 1 this year because of the Water Reuse Symposium. So that is on April 10th, and we have about 30 people going.
Wow.
So it's the biggest group we're taking, and we're very excited. We have some regional planning agency folks going, a few other board members going from their board. So we're very excited.
And then who from this board is going to the reuse conference?
That we have Commissioner Martinez, Commissioner Vanderwell, right? We signed you up for the Orange County Water District tour, and
Well, what I was really asking was for the reuse. I thought you said 3
oh,
members.
for the water reuse, yes. So we have Commissioner Anderson attending, Commissioner Martinez, and I think that's it. We have
Oh,
2.
okay.
Wasn't Andriola?
Oh, yes, Commissioner Andriola. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, she's not there.
Right, okay. Great.
Yes.
Okay,
so-
well, I'm glad to hear they're going. And then on the Orange County one, you're saying 30 people. That's fantastic.
It's fantastic, yes. And as it grows, it's exciting because we really want, just like our education website, we want our members and all of the agency staff as well as public to have a better idea of, these projects and transparency about what we're doing in our community. So I think these are really great for that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, please, Mr. Anderson, yeah.
So if you all haven't been given a book yet, I suggest we were, those of us that were at the last Tumwa meeting were given a book, but you've got some extra copies as I saw there. I would strongly recommend those of you, especially that are new to this board and Tumwa as well, that you take an opportunity to read it because to me it was enlightening. There was another book, and I don't remember the title of that one that we were given a couple of years ago. But as electeds, it showed how important it is that we are able and willing to share the message of what is happening with water in a community. And likewise, this last book, more so than any, is how important it is that we control the message as it's going out to the community. And I've already seen some of the responses that you talked about in the book that people, if it goes the wrong direction, can be repulsed by things that are happening. So if you're able to go to the, Orange County or any of those, it's invaluable to help us figure out how to better communicate and lead for our constituents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So the book that we gave you 2 years ago, I think was called The Water Recycling Revolution. And this book is called Purified.
Yeah.
And both of the books are really fantastic in understanding the challenges that other communities have faced in getting advanced purified water projects and water recycling projects going in their communities. And it also has a lot of really good examples of successful implementation of these projects and why those projects were successful. And my personal view is that most of it was around communication and outreach to the community.
Right.
So it's
Well, and
super
we heard
important.
that a lot. Mr. Anderson and I were able to go on, I think, your very first tour. And we heard that throughout, at every place we went, was that communication was key to get the technologies accepted. And that's why, again, I'm glad you're doing the videos, because it's very possible you can even do a video on the advanced purified water at some point, in conjunction with that team. So it's all good. Thank you.
If I may just
Yeah.
add one thing that I think it was in this book. One of the quotes from one of these water projects that did not succeed initially was, the worst thing that can happen to a great water project is politics. And so I think that's the value of us having a good understanding of what's happening and why we're doing it. All those how, what, why, those things are important. So thank you.
Anything else for us?
That's it. Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
Well, we'll close out item 10 and move on to 11, which is possible direction to staff regarding agenda items and dates for future meetings. So,
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So like I mentioned in the previous agenda item, we will not be having a March meeting due to the Water Reuse Symposium. So the next WRWC meeting will be held on April 16th, 2025 at 9 a.m. here in the Sparks Chambers. I also, at the beginning of the year, since we didn't have our January meeting, like to just put out a meeting outlook calendar so that we can go through where our milestones are for our meetings. So you'll see that our February meeting, I put on there our budget approval, and we'll do our board elections after this item. In April, we also have board appointments for all of the different board members. So I know that you've all already made your board appointments. We'll go ahead. There's nothing that we do ceremoniously in the meeting to do that, but we will also have our Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission appointments affirmed at their meeting in April. And my hope is in April, we will have a refined scope of work and a recommendation from the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission on that wastewater regionalization proposal.
okay.
So we plan to get that approved by the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission in March and bring it to you in April. Typically, we do June meetings, project updates. I pushed that to July. We don't normally hold July meetings, if that's okay with the board. I will be out of town in June for that particular board meeting. So I was hoping that we could do the project updates in July, and if we can't, we can always use our August and September timeframes to do those updates. We have plenty of time. In October, we have our financial audit, and we present the financials for approval to the board. And then in November, that is our annual concurrent meeting with the Water Planning Commission members, where we review their priority setting for the next fiscal year. That would be fiscal year 27. It's hard to imagine because it seems so far out there, but it comes very quickly. And we'll talk more about our projects and our priorities for the following fiscal year with the Water Planning Commission members, and they can go into more detail on some of their priorities that they're bringing forward. And December, we don't normally have a December meeting. I keep it on the calendar as a tentative date in case we need it, but we typically don't hold a December meeting unless we absolutely have to, the holidays. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'll take any suggestions for future meeting agenda items. I also did want to mention, we did get the climatologist scheduled for the October meeting. We were
Okay.
trying to get him sooner, but we couldn't get him scheduled, but he is on the schedule. For
Well,
October.
he is a very popular guy. And I think anyone who hasn't seen his presentation will be fascinated by what he does for our state and what he has done for other communities. A really cool guy. Okay. And that's it? Okay, so on this item, do we have to formally adopt these meeting dates, or?
You do not.
Okay.
I just like to, as a presentation item, if you wanted something brought
Okay.
forward, we
All
would
right.
need that as an action item, but unless there's anything
Okay.
that you necessarily want.
All right, and then so we're also looking for any agenda items, like things that you would like to be discussed. We always have a little bit of time to discuss a policy issue or, a current cutting edge issue in water. We've had some really good presentations on PFAS, for example. We've had presentations on other topics. We're going to hear about climate change from our new state climatologist. So anything else on anybody's mind like to hear about? No? Okay, well, you'll have time at every meeting to suggest that. So with that, thank you for the updates, and we'll close out item 11. Okay, and we'll move on to 12, which is election of the WRWC Chair, Vice Chair, Secretary, and Treasurer for 2025 calendar year. You want to walk us through this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim Rigdon for the record. So members of the commission, the WRWC Act mandates that we hold board elections every year for the chair position, the vice chair position, and secretary treasurer position. The office terms end each year on December 31st, and the previous election outcomes are in your board packet under item, sorry, I lost track what item 12. So you'll see who has served in those positions in years past.
Yep.
The WRWC Act is silent on holding multiple terms or rotating that position, and so that's really up to the board to decide.
Okay. All right, is that it? Or,
That's it, and we'll let you guys.
you know, I've been on here a long time, and I would like, I don't mean as chair, but on this board, I think I've been, this is my 11th year. I would like to make a nomination for these officers, and I would like to nominate Mr. Anderson for chair. He's currently serving as our vice chair. I'd like to nominate Ms. Hill as the vice chair, and for secretary treasurer, I'd like to nominate Ms. Siebert. And I don't know, Mr. Anderson, are you willing to serve?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, because it's a big responsibility. Okay, and then let me ask also Ms. Siebert.
Accept the nomination.
Yeah, okay. And then I briefly spoke to Ms. Hill, and she indicated a willingness to serve as vice chair. So with that, that sounds great to me. Is there a second for that? All right, thank you, Mr. Martinez. So we have a motion and a second for our new officers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Okay, and so with that, I'll hand over the gavel as soon as we end the meeting, since all we've got left is public comment and so on. But I'm going to hold public comment till we get any commission comments. I'm going to take these out of order. Any commission comments on anything? Okay. Any staff comments on anything?
We have no comments, Madam Chair.
Okay. And then any final public comment? And on Zoom, I don't see the Zoom still showing, but. Okay, very good. All right, well, with that, I will declare us adjourned. Thank you so much for being here. And in about a half hour or a little less, we'll have Tom Watt in the room.